So thank you for joining us for the MLA Producer Demonstration Site webinar. We aim to answer your questions regarding the PDS program and submitting project proposals to our open call. Presenting today, we have myself, Alana McEwen. I'm the project manager of MLA's Producer Demonstration Site program. I've been employed with MLA for for approximately 12 years, initially within the MSA program before moving into the adoption program almost 6 years ago. I've been managing the PDS program since joining the adoption team. We also have Russell Pattinson and Maria Thompson with us today. So Russell has been engaged as National PDS Coordinator for over 7 years now. Russell has had a consultancy business for the last 20 plus years and has worked across most agricultural sectors with strong focus on strategic, operational and R&D planning and management and performance reviews. Maria Thompson founded AgStar Projects in 2011 and has managed and delivered projects across the red meat and livestock sector, including beef, sheep, wool, live export and pork industries. Maria is also the National Coordinator of the Australian Intercollegiate Meat Judging Program. Prior to this, Maria worked in agricultural marketing and communications, beef genetics, and managed the National Animal Health and Welfare portfolio for the Australian sheep meat industry. Maria works with Russell in the role of PDS coordinator for our program. So on the agenda today, we'll cover an overview of the PDS program, the funding opportunities available to producer groups, how to put together a good proposal to set yourself up for success, what is involved in running a PDS project following a successful proposal, the key dates for the current PDS open call, and following this, we'll have a brief sort of Q&A session before wrapping up. We do ask that you please add your questions to the chat box and all questions will be answered in the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So first up, I'll cover off on an introduction to the PDS program. This will include a summary of the Producer Demonstration Site program, the funding opportunities available. We'll touch on the Research Advisory Councils and their involvement in the program, how groups get involved, the PDS timeline and selection criteria, and we'll finish up with some information on some of the current engagement and impact of the program. So the program aims to increase the rate of adoption of key management practices and technologies that improve business profitability, productivity, and sustainability through livestock producers pursuing new skills and management practices within their local production systems. The purpose of the program is to provide long-term hands-on learning programs that underpin MLA's adoption and research, which facilitates the adoption of management practices and technology that will improve industry prosperity. Achieve practice change and demonstrated impact in commercially relevant environments. Address regional issues, which encourage engagement and demonstrate the value to those producers involved and the wider industry. And also maximise stakeholder engagement and feedback, including the Research Advisory Councils, which we'll touch on further. Under the current PDS strategy, there are 3 funding streams: the Levy PDS, Co-Contributor PDS, and Integrated R&D PDS. This webinar will focus on the Levy and Co-Contributor PDS projects, as we do not call for Integrated R&D PDS projects under the annual call. The Integrated R&D PDS is a pathway to adoption for new and existing research projects. The demonstration activity is built into the research projects and commences once some clear findings are identified and in a position for commercial implementation. The Levy and Co-Contributor PDS program seeks producer group-led, regionally focused projects aiming to achieve demonstrable permanent practice change on farm. The program has a robust monitoring and evaluation framework to demonstrate value and impact to the producers involved, and communication activities to extend the project activities and outcomes to the wider community and industry. Key to the program is that the program participants are looking to implement known practices and commercially available technology. It's all about adoption of what we know as opposed to any form of focused on research. So MLA have completed 4 open calls for Levy and Co-Contributor projects under the current strategy. The strategy was piloted in 2020 and we've contracted 74 new projects in the last 4 years. We currently have over 80 projects under management for the PDS program across the 3 funding options. During 21-22, we had over 500 active demonstration sites engaging over 800 core producers nationally. On average, producers involved in the PDS program have demonstrated to have the potential to see an additional net benefit of $6.68 per hectare annually as a result of their engagement with the program. This slide is just a bit of a demonstration of one of the projects that have recently completed. So the aim of this PDS was to demonstrate the economic value of strategic fertilising regimes on existing rundown subtropical pastures on the Darling Downs. It was contracted in the 1819 PDS call and recently completed and was facilitated by Jill Alexander. There was 4 core producers which all had sites around Jindawi and 121 observers involved in the project. There was an increase in the quantity and quality of the plant biomass produced. There was a 2.2 to 1 benefit to cost ratio. The producers involved increased their knowledge, skills and confidence. And the producers involved also adopted soil testing and fertilising as normal practices within their business. Some of the positives around this project was some of the general feedback that was provided or unexpected benefits that were received, which was that a couple of the core producers had expanded their fertilising to other paddocks on their properties outside of just the sites they were using for the project. And 2 of the core producers had purchased their own fertilising spreaders, and 1 was doing contracting with that is spread. So the primary reason given for this was to yield benefit they have observed in their project paddocks, and the results influence the timelines of application of fertiliser. We've found over the last couple of years, thanks to COVID, the number of core and observer producers engaged have definitely been impacted, but we are starting to see a positive on the increase of core producers and observer producers across the country, again, with COVID restrictions not being an issue. MLA seeks applications for levy and co-contributor PDS projects annually that are producer-driven, have 10 core producers with 3 or more of those hosting demonstration sites. We do offer flexibility on the number of core producers and sites within extensive regions, and the project's length are from 2 to 6 years. The key difference between the 2 funding options under the PDS Open Call are budget and the project's alignment to relevant priorities. From a budget perspective, levy projects can access up to $30,000 per year for the life of the project, while co-contributor can access up to $60,000. The additional budget in a co-contributor is achieved through cash contribution being matched through MLA's donor company. We will touch on that in more detail on the next slide. From a priorities perspective, all levy projects need to address a PDS priority that is set by the Research Advisory Councils, where a co-contributor project must meet industry priorities and have a direct link to key outcomes and industry goals outlined in Red Meat 2030 and the MLA strategic plan. So the co-contributor does provide more flexibility around what those projects may be. I just wanted to highlight a couple of key changes with regards to the budgets that we're implementing for the 23-24 PDS Open Call. Through feedback we've received via our consultation process and speaking with existing PDS project facilitators, we've identified a couple of key changes that we're implementing. We've increased the budget for both levy and co-contributor projects. So the levy project was an increase of $5,000 a year and $10,000 a year for co-contributor. With regards to co-contributor projects, historically the cash contribution to be matched by MDC has had to be funds received from a producer. We've opened up an option to not only have producer funds, but also the option for a portion of that contribution to come from some other third party or commercial source. The key is that these funds cannot be Commonwealth funds, as we're unable to match these through MDC. So there are now 2 funding split options for co-contributor projects. So the producer-only option is where 25% of the contribution is from producers, 25% from MDC, and the remaining 50% from levies. This is calculated based on the total project budget, and an access fee of 8% is calculated on the relevant contribution amounts. The second option being producer plus third party, where a minimum of 15% still needs to come from producers. Up to 12.5% can then come from a third party, with that 27.5% being matched by MDC and the remaining 45% being funded by levies. The producer contribution will still incur an 8% access fee, while the access fee for third-party contributions 12%, again calculated on the value of their contribution. As mentioned, the Research Advisory Councils under MLA's consultation framework are utilised to engage producers to assist with determining the levy PDS priorities on an annual basis. To provide some background to this process, the consultation framework is made up of 3 research advisory councils. So we have NABRAC, the Northern Australian Beef Research Council, consisting of 11 regions across Northern Australia, the brown section on the map. WALRAC, the Western Australian Livestock Council, made up of a number of producer members covering the yellow section, and SALRAC, Southern Australia Livestock Council, has 7 regional committees in the green section, which reaches up into Queensland from a sheep perspective. MLA encourage all applicants to engage with relevant regional committees when considering PDS project concepts and applications. These committees may offer additional context around the priorities and are a good sounding board for project concepts, as well as applications with support from these committees are highly regarded. So here's an example of what the levy PDS priorities may look like. This can be found in the terms of reference for the PDS open call, which for this year will be published on the MLA website by the 29th of March. The priority table outlines the priority category, such as water management, feed base, beef productivity, etc. These categories are determined by the priorities that are submitted by the RACs. As you can see in this example, there's 2 priorities under the water management category relevant to Northern Australia. So how do groups get involved? The PDS open call process is a structured annual call for both the levy and COCOM projects, with a call commencing in April each year. The key dates for the annual call are published on the MLA website by January each year, with promotion generally commencing approximately 6 weeks prior to the call opening. The terms of reference for the call are published on the MLA website the week prior to the application's opening. These will be found under the Get Involved section on the PDS webpage. This includes the regional priorities, the application selection criteria, and key dates and information relevant to the call process. MLA will promote the upcoming open call through its networks, including Feedback Magazine, the weekly, media, and socials. The call process for PDS is a 2-stage application process. So applications this year will open on the 3rd of April, with preliminary applications being open for 6 weeks, closing in mid-May. The preliminary applications are reviewed by a panel of MLA project and program managers, along with the PDS coordinators. And in addition, levy applications are also reviewed by a producer panel made up of members from the regional consultation committees. In July, successful applicants are invited to submit full applications and have 4 weeks to complete their submissions. Full applicants are advised of the outcome of their application process in mid-September each year, with the aim of having all new projects contracted by December. All applicants are provided with constructive feedback at both the preliminary and full application stages to assist with refining applications between the stages of the call, and also to provide guidance for future submissions. Selection criteria. So there's 9 selection criteria outlined in the terms of reference. The selection criteria are aligned with key components of both the preliminary and full application forms. As a competitive application process, each application is reviewed and assessed against the selection criteria and the quality of the other applications that are submitted. So the selection criteria include alignment to the relevant priorities, whether it's a levy or co-contributor PDS project, the number and enthusiasm of producers involved, the potential impact on the producer business and also industry, the capability of the PDS team, being both the group themselves and their experience in previous projects, as well as the person facilitating the project, how clear and measurable the objectives are, the methodology and its ability to demonstrate the business value of changing the technology, practice, or innovation, and to achieve practice change, extension and communications, plans and activities, monitoring and evaluation, and also whether the project offers value for money. Just a reminder, if anyone does have any questions, to please pop them into the chat box and we'll answer them at the end of the session. For now, I will hand over to Maria.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Alana, for that brief overview. Robin, are you online? Would you like to unmute and pop your camera on?
I can unmute, but I don't have a camera.
No worries, that's fine. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, Robin. So we've invited Robin Adams along just to do a quick participant interview so that you can hear directly from a producer involved in a PDS program. So Robin, thanks for joining us. What is the key focus of the Producer Demonstration Site project that you're involved in?
The Girl Power project, the main focus of that has been how to better manage replacement females in breeder operations in the extensive rangeland cattle properties like we have up here. So the participating producers then would more closely monitoring their young females from weaning through to having that second calf. So the parameters and requirements of the project was to focus on the monitoring and the management and the recording that data around that stuff. So the producers could improve those heifer outcomes, basically higher weights before, during and after calving, higher conception, calving and weaning rates, and more of those juvenile breeders enter the mature herd in better health and are better mothers and better weights. Yep. So that was the main focus.
Thanks, Robin. So awesome, thank you. So why did you want to be involved in a PDS?
I think obviously we're in the Desert Uplands Committee, which is the desert woodlands in the middle of Queensland. And, you know, through the long drought, we knew that those females weren't reaching their potential, and they were, as maidens, they were not calving very well. We had lower conception rates. And also in the dry, you end up treating those heifers sort of after the fact. They're poor, they've got a calf at foot, you've got less options. So we thought, what can we do? What can we learn to improve it so we don't get in that situation? So that's probably where it all came. Why there was a group of producers who wanted to look to address this, and we'd been looking to address it for a while. Yes, because we've had the drought basically went for about 10 years up here.
Yeah, okay. So what have been the on-farm benefits of participating in a PDS?
I think the main benefits in a PDS so I'm talking about I'm the lead on the project, but also a participant and one of the producer demonstration sites. One of the key things is just changing your focus to whatever, in this case it was heifers. So, and watching them from weaning right through. So they're going through the yards more often, they're getting looked at more often, we're checking their body condition score, we're weighing them more often. Now that's done a lot more on farms, but in the extensive rangelands, we often wean those heifers and put them away and go look at them in 2 years' time when they've got when we first joined the bulls. So it was a matter of just changing the focus of the participating producers, and then with that data collection and the change of focus and watching them more, then getting, and then changing your management from what you've learned from doing that. And I think one of the other things, as the rangelands beef production changes a little bit, we used to concentrate a lot more on steers, and then when the cusp for age females, there was dollars in that, we were then probably prioritizing some of the pasture to get those girls after they had their last calf. We're probably prioritizing them to get them up to weight so we could sell them. And we're thinking the other thing the context of all of that also is that, in the decadal drought, what can we make money out of? And those weaner heifers, it's 4 years before you're going to make money out of them. So that's what I'm saying about twigging the process. So the producer demonstration site was able and helped and supported producers to change that focus.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for that. So what have you enjoyed most about being in a PDS group, Robin?
Oh, it's just, for me, it's always the learning. Learning what you can do and what works, and then learning what, so we've all tried some different management changes. So that was really important, and you learn from what the changes other people have done in the group, so you didn't have to do it. And although there's 3 PDSs, the core producers and the observers that came to field days, there's a whole lot of stuff that came from that, insights and all that sort of stuff that's really important. And on field days you go and see, you see the heifers, you see them in all sorts of, on different country and all that. And so that's been a really big learning curve. And I think the other one is, you're part of something, you work with all those, you talk to all those producers. So there's a whole lot of learning that you can do all the way through. And in the end, you've got healthier heifers. They're reconceiving better, the better weights. So all of that, I mean, that's what you enjoy doing. Yeah. You get enjoyment out of that. Yes.
Absolutely. And I'll touch on that later, some of those unintended benefits that come out of a PDS. And as you say, it's just that peer-to-peer learning, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Robin, what would you say to other producers considering joining a PDS group?
I think like we can all get a little bit scared about, just being involved in a group and the demands of that group and what might they want us to do. But the good thing about a PDS is, it's a supported learning environment where your peers can come together, and that those other people, they might not necessarily be how you do your beef production. So, and there's all sorts of things that you can learn from that, but don't be scared about, that guy over there, he does his, he treats his cows really different to me. So don't be scared about any of that. In fact, get as many different people in that PDS and coming to your field days and coming to observer groups as you can, because that increases that diversity. You could always find something, and it might just twig something in your mind. And it's that I mean, I think we need a lot more PDSs, especially in the rangelands, because out here, there's so much you can learn from the real stuff. You cannot get cattle eating the desert grasses in a scientific way. So if we can set up these things out here so that we can learn something from it, then, and we can, then those learnings can be adopted on a wider thing, and that's how we all get better at production of what we're doing, which is producing beef, and in a lot of the cases, self-replacing breeder herds.
Thank you, Robin. There's some great points that you've added in that, and it's not just the sort of out in the desert uplands area. I guess there's probably a range of areas across the NABRAC region that could absolutely benefit from some more PDSs. So thank you so much for your time to jump on today, Robin, and to share your learnings and your wisdom on the Girl Power project. We really appreciate your time. So I'll now hand over to Russell Pattinson, who will give an update on how to create a good PDS proposal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. My charter today, or my task, is to brief you on what are the key points about making a good PDS proposal. The overarching point I'd make, and I'll probably emphasise this as we go through quite a bit, is to keep them simple. These are not complicated research projects, they're PDSs, so please, in terms of everything you think about them, please keep them as simple as possible. We'll go through now some definitions. We'll identify what makes a good PDS. We'll look at preparing applications and working through the application process so that you've got a clear picture of what might be required and how best to achieve it, so as to give your application the best chances of being supported. I'll also talk about the resources that we've got developed which are able to support you in the production of your application. Start with some definitions. We've got the core producers. These are people who are directly involved in the project. They might have demonstration sites on their property, and/or they might be just on the project steering committee. We prefer up to about 10 producers, but we realise that in extensive rangeland systems that might be a number that can't be achieved, and we're very flexible in that as well. Then we've got observer producers. These aren't directly involved in the project, but they come along to field days, workshops, field walks, or other activities. They could be other members of the farming group, or they could be other farmers that are coming from within that sort of region where the PDS is operating. The other thing is they don't all only have to be producers. They could include consultants or advisors or agents or resellers. So not just producers in the observer group. What makes a good PDS? As Robin outlined earlier, really having an engaged group of producers who are acting in unison on a particular issue is a really fundamental component of a good PDS. Those producers were seeking to develop new knowledge and skills and adopt practices in the particular issue that they've got in mind. PDSs really benefit from having an experienced facilitator or consultant leading them through the process. Obviously, the aim is to increase profitability or productivity or sustainability, but doing so in a commercial environment that then can be readily adopted by other people. As Alana pointed out in her presentation, PDSs are not about research. It's about knowing information, knowledge, or tools, but are trying to apply it in a commercial setting. The key that I'll emphasise a few points is to, in a few parts, is to establish a really clear objective, identifying what issue that you are trying to address and how. As mentioned earlier, keep the method simple, including, if you can, a control for comparison purposes. I'll come back to that. We know it's not always possible in every situation, but it is beneficial if possible. And then we really do focus the PDSs having a strong monitoring, evaluation and reporting focus, and also very good communication plans. A couple of examples might be the effective use of using breeding values to meet breeding objectives, or introducing new pasture species such as Leucaena to fill a particular feed gap. So preparing applications, there's a two-stage process that Alana outlined. Firstly, preliminary applications, then followed up, if invited to, with a full application. Ensure you've got buy-in from the producer group. That's really critical. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Would be a really strong message coming through from, I hope, this presentation. The objective is a crucial component, and I'll outline how to develop that in smart terms in a minute. As mentioned, a very concise method and sequence of events. If you need animal ethics committee approval because you're using animals in a slightly different way, then please build that into your first milestone. That's going to be really important. And I'll also give some coverage of monitoring and evaluation and communication plans. So identify first the regional priority for your application. And as Alana has pointed out, those priorities from NABRAC will be released towards the end of March. And co-contributor applications also, as mentioned, need to align not to the RAC priorities, but to industry priorities through the Red Meat 2030 or MLA's strategic plan. Then you simply select, using a drop-down box, the MLA region that your PDS activity will occur in. Then, in terms of background to the application, first of all, you outline the role or the purpose of the group. You know, why was the group put together? What are the areas of interest? Did they form specifically for this project, or have they been already established? And if they have already been established, you know, what previous experience and capacity have they got to undertake this PDS? The next is identifying the challenge or the problem or the opportunity. What is it? Clarify its impact on producers and the industry. How many producers in an area does it actually impact? How is it being addressed now, if at all? And provide an estimate of the number of producers already adopting the proposed approach. It's really important where you can to get NABRAC support for your submission for northern proposals. That just helps to ensure that it gets supported as we go through. We'd then like you to list out an aim, which is really a broad one-sentence umbrella statement, so that it's a quick and easy, easily digested statement about what this project is aiming to do. So this example here is to say, demonstrate the most suitable Lakina grass pasture systems for Northern Australia, including optimal row spacings for dryland and irrigated plantings, cultivar choice and long-term management strategies. So that's a name from a real live PDS project. So in just one sentence, it pictures exactly what you'll be trying to achieve with your PDS. The next is project objectives. We're asking them to be defined in SMART terms. So it's really seeking to clearly describe what the objective or the key result area of the project is seeking to achieve. So when we say describing them in SMART terms, we're saying make sure the objective is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. And an example of a SMART objective, and you could please use this template that we're about to show on the screen. It'll just make it a whole lot easier for you and us to be able to get through. So that example is as follows, and you just fill in, you can use this template, as I said, and just fill in the particular gaps with the specifics for your particular project. So by, let's say, October 2027, in the southeast region of Queensland, demonstration trials across 4 sites will have increased, let's say, weaning rate as a result of changed fodder access. Conduct an analysis of the costs and benefits of the trait that you're trying to change to show, the positive return on investment, or the return on investment, whether it be positive or negative, through the result of the project. Then we've got some metrics around the percentage of core producers and observer producers who will have improved their knowledge or their confidence in relation to the particular issue that you're pursuing. Then we've got another metric for the percentage of core producers and observer producers who, as a result of the PDS, will actually have adopted the trait or issue that you're trying to change. And then the final one is just saying, look, the results of this PDS will be widely disseminated with targeted extension and adoption activities such as field days, workshops, feedback articles, social media, etc., so that we widely disseminate the information coming out of the PDS as much as we possibly can. So as I mentioned, please use that template, and all it means that you need to do is just fill in the sections and the numbers to make it applicable to your particular project. The method, again, please keep it simple. Just summarise where, how and when the project will be undertaken. How many sites will it involve? Describe the project design, including any controls, and we really favour controls wherever possible. So you've got a demonstration site, and next to it you've got a control site. Outline any animal or pasture management activities and how you will measure those, and what and how the measurements will be taken. And then finally, what economic analysis, simple economic analysis, will be undertaken to measure the impact or value of the project. The next part is just in relation to communication and extension activities. How will you achieve skill development and adoption of the results within the core producer groups? How you promote those outcomes to the wider producer community, and consider incorporating things such as I mentioned before, webinars, field days, workshops, case studies, feedback articles, etc. Then the next part is in relation to the monitoring, evaluation and reporting. We place a lot of emphasis on this and having very simple MER approaches so that we can measure the impact of our projects and demonstrate success at the demonstration sites. So that will be both, the benefits coming through, the practices being demonstrated and the metrics being measured, in particular how producer change as well as knowledge and skills are enhanced. Finally, the budget. Work within the budget guidelines, the maximum $30,000 a year for levy-based PDSs, $60,000 per year for co-contributor-based PDS projects. They can operate over a period of 2 to 6 years. Operating expenses might be things like testing fees for pasture or livestock, advertising of workshops, catering, etc. Importantly, please, if you are successful and you've got a PDS running, please make sure that you keep receipts for any expenditure over $20. That's part of MLA's policy and need to be finalised in the final financial reconciliation for the project at the end. You can also have budget for travel for professional support, as well as professional fees for that project support. The things that PDS funding will not cover include on-farm labour, capital expenditure and routine monitoring and data collection. Our expectation is that a lot of that will be undertaken by the producers involved as part of their contribution. So just to complete, some of the resources that are available to support you in your application process. There's the terms of reference, which will be released prior to the open call coming out for the preliminary applications. There are templates for preliminary application and full applications, so you can just use those templates to fill in your application, making it a lot more simple. There are guidelines then for both preliminary and full applications about how to fill out the application forms. There are guidelines about monitoring, evaluation, and reporting, very simple ones that Maria will run through in a little while. Then there's communication plan guidelines, so that again, it's easy to complete the communication plan. And please keep in mind that Alana, Maria and I are here to help. So if you get stuck on anything, then please get in touch with one of us, and our contact details will be provided at the end of this webinar. Okay, please don't hesitate to put any questions into the chat box. These will be answered at the end of the presentation. Please, if you've got any questions, make the most of this opportunity to put them into the chat box. Thanks very much, everybody, and I'll pass now over to Maria for the next session.
Thank you, Russell. So I'm just going to go through. Oh, I'm getting feedback, Russell. Thanks. So I'm just going to go through what's required from an MLA reporting perspective in regards to running a PDS. And as part of that, we'll go through the key elements of the project, the monitoring, evaluation and reporting, or the MER, what surveys will be required, the communications plans, and then your milestone and final reports. So key elements of the project include monitoring, evaluation and reporting, or the MER template, which will be provided to you. You'll also be required to do a communications plan. It also has a template. As part of the requirements to meet the MER, we provide templates for pre and post project surveys, which I'll touch on again shortly as to why we'll do those. There is 6 monthly milestone reports required, and then there's a final report, which will also include financial reconciliation. So as part of those, once if your full application is successful and it moves through to contracting phase, all PDS facilitators will be invited to a training session. So we'll take you through a training on how to complete all of the templates and all of the requirements for the PDS reporting process. So that will include the pre and the post project surveys, the monitoring, evaluation, reporting framework, the communications plan, and also what's required for your milestone reporting. As well as providing the training, Russell, Alana and I are always available to help the PDS facilitators throughout the project, and as well as having no-go meetings on an annual basis as well. a slide delay at my end. So with the monitoring, evaluation, reporting framework, this is a key element of the Red Meat 2030. So that's the overarching red meat industry strategic plan. And monitoring, evaluation and reporting is a fundamental component of that, as well as MLA strategic and MLA operating plans. And it's really to demonstrate the overall return on investment to levy payers being producers. So under the PDS program, the monitoring, evaluation and reporting aims to demonstrate the project performance. I'll go through this again in future slides. A knowledge, attitude, skill, aspiration and confidence changes as a result of being involved in the PDS, as well as a change in practice or a change in behaviour, which will ultimately have impacts and benefits to the producers involved. A key element of the project also is to help identify barriers to adoption and how industry and MLA can work to address what those barriers are. The monitoring, evaluation and reporting has a template like all of the other documents that we require, and training and support is provided for those. So the monitoring, evaluation and reporting framework for the PDS is set up on what's called the Bennett's hierarchy, which is just basically a framework for extension programs, and it helps with monitoring and evaluation. So in the hierarchy there, we have inputs, which are basically the investments, what goes into the project. So that's in terms of dollar, staff, people involved, core producers, etc. The outputs are the products that come out of the project. So that can include data, it can include field days, communication materials, etc. The next step from those inputs and those outputs is actually achieving a change in knowledge, attitude, skills, aspiration. And for the PDS, we also measure changes in confidence level, which will ultimately then lead to a practice change or a behavioural change on farm, which then leads on to obviously a benefit to the farmers or producers and the group involved. And then the MER also aims to capture the broader benefits to industry and the key learnings from the monitoring, evaluation and from being involved in the PDS. So the monitoring, evaluation and reporting framework, I think I've got a delay of slides at my end again, is set up here. So this is basically what the template looks like. We have, as I've just described in the Bennett's hierarchy there, we have inputs on the left and outputs. So for each of the evaluation levels, we have a series of performance measures or metrics for you to demonstrate what you're aiming to achieve with your PDS. And in the right-hand column is the evaluation method, which just explains what methodology you're going to use to demonstrate that your project has met the performance measure. Next slide. So we have the next level is the CASA change, or the knowledge, attitude, skills and aspirations. So that's how well did we do it? What are the measure of the change? And the performance measures will come from the objectives, which Russell went through. So that will become the metric that you're aiming to achieve. And then the evaluation method will essentially be the pre and the post project surveys, which I'll touch on again shortly. But you can see there why the pre and the post project surveys are so important, because they are the method to demonstrate the metric has been met. The next level is the practice change. So has it changed what people do? As a result of the project, have people changed what they're doing on farm, and have they made specific changes? Have they adopted the new practice, or have they intended to adopt the new practice or the innovation or the technology? If they haven't, why not? And that is also likely to be one of your key objectives in regards to your practice change. And again, that's measured or through the methodology of the project and event pre and post project surveys. Slides are being delayed here at my end. Down in Coonabarabran, it's taken a while to get here. Sorry about that. So the next level is the benefits. So that is, what is the benefits or the impact So is anyone better off? So as a result of the project, what is the actual outcome and the impact of it? The way that is evaluated is through the methodology is through the CASA change reported in the MER, but also through a cost-benefit analysis. But just keeping in mind, as Russell has said throughout, the importance of keeping that absolutely simple as possible. The final level that we have is the general observations and outcomes, and that's really asking the question, is industry better off? And so that is captured through post-project surveys. It's a capture of the project learnings, the barriers and the enablers to adoption, and that's captured through case studies or could also be through project learnings. Another important element of this is the capturing the unintended outcomes and benefits, and I think Robin spoke to that in regards to that peer-to-peer group learning that you have from being involved in a PDS program. And so often we see, so many other outcomes and other benefits that producers gain from being involved in a project. It's frozen at my end slide-wise. No, it's not. Sorry, it's just a little delayed. So the surveys, I should know this off by heart. I should know what slides are coming next. So the surveys for the core producers in particular we do that at the pre-project stage and at the post-project stage. So once again, we provide templates for this. That's broken up into 3 sections. Section A is the collection of the demographic data, the contact details, how many hectares or square kilometres, how many head involved, and also includes the MLA consent. Section B is the knowledge and skills. So that's usually tailored towards the project aims and the project objectives. It's a combination of self-rating and right and wrong, like quiz type questions. And section C aims to collect the information in regards to the confidence and the practice change or the intended practice change. Another component of section C is the collection of the current performance metrics. So that's a collection of the baseline data, particularly for the simple cost benefit analysis that's done. So the data is collected at the start of the project, and when the producers go and do the post-project, the same performance measures are collected again. And so that is aims to, demonstrate the change that the project has had. The next slide is the observer surveys. So that's a template. It's provided for MLA to capture the demographics, particularly of the observers that are involved in events, for example, that they might attend. And additional questions can be added by the facilitator in regards to the specific questions of the project itself and the intention of people to adopt or make any changes as a result of attending an event in regards to the PDS. So as I mentioned before, we have the pre-project surveys, and then at the end of the project, we have the post-project surveys. So, excuse me, templates are available for core and observer surveys. We usually ask for the post-project survey to be submitted about 3 to 6 months prior to the final report. The expectation is that 100% of the core producers, not just the site hosts, that they complete that post-project survey, and we ask that you target as many observer producers as possible to collect that information. The post-project survey data really adds to the final report, and it demonstrates the success of the project in regards to the CASA, the knowledge, attitude, skills, aspiration, the confidence, and also the practice change. So the communications plan is another template that we provide to you. This is really about capturing and getting as much communication as you can out to your group, your region, and also the broader industry in regards to your project. MLA provides guidelines and a template. Training's also provided on how to help you fill out the communications plan, and we encourage you to use quite a diverse range of communication channels, including field days and workshops, articles and press releases, case studies, video case studies, producer guides, utilising the SALRAC, NABRAC and WALRAC channels. For you guys, it'd be obviously NABRAC channels. We suggest that you can utilise the website updates. MLA has a PDS website specific, which Alana will touch on shortly. We encourage the use of social media and obviously the MLA channels of communication. So the communication plan guidelines include branding guidelines, importance of MLA approval prior to distribution, particularly for written documents, and we aim to have a very quick turnaround for those. And with all of the communication collateral that we encourage you to create as part of the project, there's already templates and guidelines set up to make it as easy and as simple for you as facilitators and as producers involved as possible. So we have case study templates and guidelines. We have a template for the event flyers. We provide image release forms and also video guidelines if you're going to capture videos of the PDS process. The communication plan template is very simple. A lot of it's already done through your full application process. It asks for a background, what challenge the PDS is trying to address, who the target audience is, what the key communication messages are, what the outcomes of the PDS are, what the communication component budget is, and then it has a template down the bottom on a table where you put down what timing, what the communication tactic is. So is it a written producer case study? Is it a video case study? Is it a media release, etc.? What the communication channels are, and then what your key communication messages are, which you just pull from the key messages above. So milestone reports become a key element of the project. So we ask for project reports. They're reported every 6 months. We provide a template for those as well. They're really easy to use. As our mantra that we've been saying the whole way through, we encourage you to keep it as simple as possible. 2 to 3 pages for your 6 monthly report is fine. Milestone 1 will essentially be your completion of your MER framework, your communications plan and your pre-survey. When you're doing your milestone reports, you merely copy your milestone criteria from your contract, and then you add in next to each criteria how you've met it. We ask that you summarise any key outputs or results from the demonstration sites. You provide an update on the MER plan and how that's progressing. You provide a progress against the communications plan. So you simply list what communications has been done within that 6 months. You detail provide any detail of steering committee meetings, details of any extension events that you've had, might be field days, workshops, webinars, etc. What are the key elements that you're going to be hoping to achieve in the next 6 months? And you also add in any changes to the methodology or any challenges or issues that the project has had, which is key, really key. We did a SALRAC presentation this morning, and I guess with that, we just emphasised the flexibility required. We understand that these producer demonstration sites are being conducted on stations, on properties, on farms, and there's obviously a whole range of challenges day to day that can occur. So we just ask that you keep the PDS facilitators up to date, and we can have a meeting and discuss any changes required to the methodology as required. The final component of the milestone report is the 100-word summary. That is really important component to provide an update of how your project's progressing. That 100-word summary gets sent in to Alana, and Alana pulls together the distribution of a PDS update or a newsletter, which is distributed quarterly, and that provides an update of all of the PDS projects that are happening at any point in time, and with that 100-word summary of the project that you have. The next one is the final report. Once again, we provide a standard template. It's pretty simple. It's an abstract, an executive summary, the background, the objectives, method, results, discussion, recommendations, and conclusion. And because you have that 6 monthly reporting through the milestone reporting, you're sort of tasked to collect all of this information as you go. So the final report should not be an onerous task. In the final report, there's also a summary table where we're capturing key statistics in regards to the number of sites, the area included, the number of head, the people involved. It captures the changes in the knowledge, the attitude, the skills, the confidence changes. It captures the practice change, the impacts of the practices and the benefits. And also with the final report, you are required to submit a financial reconciliation. And that's the end of mine. My apologies for the delay with the slides there. So please feel free to add your questions into the meeting chat, which we can see a few are coming in, but this is really an opportunity to ask Alana, Russell and I any questions that you have about the process, and we're more than happy to have a discussion and to help out with any questions. Okay, I'll now hand over to Alana.
Thanks, Maria. Before we move on to answering your questions, we're just going to highlight some of the key dates for the current PDS call. So the open call, as I've mentioned, the terms of reference will be published on the 29th of March with preliminary applications opening on the 3rd of April. They will be open for 6 weeks, closing on the 16th of May. We will then go through our preliminary review process and advise successful and unsuccessful applicants by the 6th of July. Successful applicants will then have the 4 weeks through to the 3rd of August to submit their full applications. We go back through that review process at full stage and we'll notify successful applicants and unsuccessful applicants in that mid-September period. Just touch on a couple of other things. So the PDS website has been updated. So to access any information with regards to the PDS call, it's all housed in the Get Involved section of the website. So underneath those PDS quick links, you'll see the 2 producers waving their arms. That's where you'll find all the information with regards to the call, including the application templates, guidelines, key dates, and also that is where the terms of reference will be published. Maria mentioned the PDS Updates newsletter. So we have the Updates newsletter goes out every quarter. It provides a breakdown of project summaries for all projects that have been reported in the previous 3 months. They're split into these 3 tiles that you can see of the NABRAC, SALRAC and WALRAC. We also incorporate other news articles, case studies, etc., that the projects have developed to try and extend the reach of the information and the resources that are being developed under these projects. So you can subscribe to the PDS updates just by going to mla.com.au/PDS, and within those quick link sections, there's a subscription button there. The PDS search tool was released last year, so this is a really good resource to look at what PDS activity might be happening within your region or even maybe happening in another region but could potentially have relevance to you and your business. So you can search the PDS tool for all current and previous PDS projects. It provides you with the option to search by topic, state or region of relevance, making the findings of each of our PDSs more accessible and allowing producers to incorporate the outcomes into their own production systems. So using the tool, producers and also service providers can access summaries of each PDS project alongside the progress updates and key findings on completed projects. We also link through those extension materials and resources that are developed by the PDS projects as well, so that we can increase that reach and further disseminate that information. So you can go to mla.com.au/PDS-search for direct access, or on the main PDS page, there is a quick link button through to the search tool as well. So there's approximately 145 projects currently captured within the search tool, covering off on both Levy, co-contributor, and also integrated R&D PDS projects. Okay, so we'll just go through to any questions. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat and we will go through and answer those.
We've currently got one question that's in the chat unanswered. There was a previous question here from Barb asking what a rack is that we've had answered by Maria and another guest in the webinar. So thank you for that. Just for anyone else that was listening, a rack is the regional, it's the research council, research advisory council that come together and form the priorities for the research that MLA invests in. The other question that we've got in the chat here is, can a producer be the PDS facilitator if they have the required skills and experience, or does it need to be an independent facilitator?
Thanks, Gabby. I'll touch on that one, and Maria and Russell, feel free to add. So the key is that the facilitator does have the skills and experience to facilitate the project. We do have some projects where producers are facilitating those projects. They're generally not a host producer, but may sit within the core group, but do have those skills and experience of facilitating projects and extension activities. So based on that, absolutely, if you've got the skills and the experience and the ability to deliver a project, complete the reporting, etc., it is an option. In most cases, we do see either project officers or coordinators within farming system groups or third-party consultants engaged as project facilitators for PDS.
Alana, I'll just jump in on that if I may.
Yep.
So the PDS contract needs to be contracted to a body or an entity. So if you are a producer and you do have the skills and experience to be a facilitator, you would either need to be the contracting organisation or find a contracting organisation. And as part of that, there is a requirement for you to have insurance. The levels of insurance for that, professional indemnity, public liability, and to provide your certificates of currency as part of that.
Thanks for that, Maria. Yes, so there are requirements around contracting which may come into play there as well. So that's something that would need to be considered. Barb, if you were looking at putting an application through where you'd be facilitating that, would be, you know, who that contracted party would be and whether that would be you as your own business or not. Are there any other questions? Now's a great opportunity to get them out if you do have any. If not, or if you think of something after we're finished, that's not a problem. Feel free to reach out to Russell, Maria, or I. Oh, got another one come up.
Barb's on fire. She's got all good questions. So she's asked, the co-contribution grants refer to third parties. Examples of who the third parties are, and does the PDS find the third party, or are they sponsors?
So a third party could be you partnering with another organisation. So for example, you may be able to convince Nutrien or Elders or Zoetis or any of those commercial guys to provide some contribution towards your project. It would need to be, in the case of matching it through as a co-contributor, it would need to be a cash contribution. So we do find some projects get cash contributions from other organisations. What it's allowing us to do through that co-contributor is leverage that through MDC, reduce the amount producers need to contribute towards the project by leveraging that funding from those third parties. So the key there, Barb, is, and everyone else online, as I did mention earlier, is that it needs to be commercial funds. It cannot be Commonwealth funds, as we're not able to match Commonwealth funds through the MDC funding program.
Good.
And with regards to who gets that, it's generally the project group. So the facilitator and project group would be who would be actively out there trying to source that additional funding and support. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Excellent. So if there's no other questions coming through, as I said, feel free to reach out at any time. We'll just go through a few key points before we wrap up for the day. So the PDS open call is a competitive process. So the applications with clear, simple objectives and methodology are well regarded. The call has multiple stages. So plan your project work to commence in December to April. So December 23 to April 24 is when we'll be looking at these projects commencing. We encourage you to utilise the co-contributor model where possible, as it does allow you to boost obviously the project value and also offers flexibility in the project aim and design. The resources are available there to assist you, so utilise the guides provided as well as the PDS team. Priorities and terms of references are published in late March. So as I mentioned, 29th of March is when the terms of reference will be published on the MLA website. And the preliminary applications will open from the 3rd of April through to the 16th of May. So there's Russell, mine and Maria's contact details. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd like to thank you for your time today. We look forward to working with you in the future. And if you would like to be included in our mailing list for future open call announcements, as well as our PDS updates, just go to the website and sign up to the subscription list.